to get a SQL Server database, or I want to store my data somewhere else. Okay, now I have to go talk to someone in Azure, or someone who can give me the database in Azure, which is almost impossible to get to. So everything unified, SaaSified, but it's secured and governed. All the security features that we've brought out for Power BI for all this time, like MIP labels, I think I presented here last time on MIP labels, data governance, and things like this. All these features are taken to Fabric by default. Now, again, what does that mean? All these workloads that we have on top, we call them workloads, data factory, data engineering, data science. We use the same workspace architecture and that we have in Power BI. We have as universal compute capacities. What we have today as capacities in Power BI now automatically become Fabric capacities too. So you can use everything that you have in Fabric with the same capacity model that we have today. One security, we'll get back to this, and OneLake. OneLake is also important. Again, that's really the secret sauce of Fabric. Again, single onboarding, single sign-on, single navigation model, single UX model, workspace organization, collaboration, a single data lake, single storage format, single security model, CI/CD, and Matthias just showed it, data hub, governance and compliance. Again, the whole core premise here is everything is shared with everything else. Now, again, it just works. This is a slide we actually took from when we started Power BI. 5 out of 5, frictionless onboarding, instant provisioning, quick results, success by default. Like, you don't have to do anything. Who here, again, is familiar with Synapse? Who has built Synapse data warehouses and things like this? Yeah, a few hands. So, I took this meme from Twitter. Like, anyone who knows and have built Synapse and had to build dedicated pool distributions, it was just a nightmare. It was really, really, really tough to do these things in Synapse. And you can just put them at the bin. You don't need to do that anymore because minimal knobs, auto-optimized, auto-integrate. It just works, it's just performant. Kind of like Power BI. Of course, there are always, you can have models, you can have DAX measures, you can things that you need to optimize, but by default, it's pretty fast. And then finally, the tenant-wide governance, centralized security, management, and compliance built in. And that's really important. Now, okay, now you might want to ask, okay, I'm a Power BI developer, do I need to see all this new stuff? No, you don't need to. Because we have a persona-optimized experiences. We have a Power BI optimized experience, data science, data engineering, all of these things, data warehousing. You can choose and you can do all these things. Now, let's take a quick look and do a quick demo of showing you end-to-end what it looks like. And let's hope everything works. So again here, Power BI, the one thing that I do want to emphasize and say, if you're using Power BI today, nothing has to change. You can keep on going, you can keep on doing. A lot of people think, oh no, Fabric is here, I need to learn all kinds of new things. You don't have to. Power BI stays exactly the same it is. The big thing with Fabric is there are new things that now are possible that were not really that easily possible before. Even though most of the things are actually already possible before, but they were never that possible in this integrated mode. And there are a few cool new things, which I'll show in a second, kind of related to Power BI that were not possible before. That needs Fabric. But again, I'm in Power BI, this is the same way that all this has looked. Okay? But now I actually want to go and do some other things. So I can click on my selector in the bottom. You can see now all the workloads that I have available for me today. So Power BI, Data Factory, Data Engineering, Data Science, Data Warehouse, and Real-Time Analytics. I'm going to click Data Science. And here I can create a model, experiments, and notebooks. All of these things that I can do if I actually would be a data science person. I'm totally not. I'm an old school data warehousing guy. So I'm going to go to the data warehouse. Okay? And this is a data warehouse. This is a data warehouse as we know it. But I don't have to do anything. I can just go and click New Warehouse. That's it. I can click Task, Kasper, probably 2, Create, and now it's going to start creating a data warehouse. That's it. I'm done. Wow. It just created a data warehouse for me. It's going to take some time. I want it to be faster. I actually complained to the development team, and they're going to work on it for sure. I told them I'm not going to sit here wait 30 seconds for us to show up in the warehouse. So I'm going to quickly go to the other one. They told me it's going to be much faster when we go to GA. But let's go and actually show you what I did do. So I created the data warehouse and I got some data into it. And I used, this looks familiar for whoever used Azure Data Factory. This is Data Factory. And I just loaded in some data, very simple and straightforward. Very simple and straightforward. I have a source here, and I'm just taking some data from SQL Server, and I'm moving that into a data warehouse. In this case, I'll call it the Fabric warehouse. That's it. And I run it, and then it loads. I'm not going to sit here around and looking at data loading. That's rather boring. I'm just going to go to the warehouse itself. And I picked the wrong one. Yeah, now it's loading my warehouse. This is the one that I loaded before with some of the tables. Now, all right, they will teach me. I was saying bad things about the PM team.
Development team.
I think they're watching. So yeah, so here you see the warehouse. I have my tables on the left. You can see all the tables: date, product, promotion, factor and sales. You can see the preview here. I can go in and create store procedures. I can create views. And I can actually write some SQL queries too, so I can actually go in here and run the SQL query. Very straightforward and simple. That's it. So I just created the data warehouse. That's it. Like, imagine in the past going to Azure or whatever other product you have to go create a data warehouse. It's a lot of work. Now it's here. I just created. I clicked on it, and I can write some SQL queries here, and I can actually go do things like I can use Management Studio. Let me make sure the connection is still there. Yeah. Okay, I'm selecting my database. So again, I can use any tool. It's just like a regular SQL Server database, data warehouse. I can go in and select execute the same query again. So here, same query. So if you have other products, external tools, whatever you want, there's a SQL endpoint. You can just connect to it and use it. Okay, so just like any other SQL Server, but now it's in Fabric. It's a SaaSified environment. I just created it, I clicked it, it was done. But there's more. Because let's say I want to do a little bit of modeling, right? And there's a database, I want to create relationships, I want to do some stuff here. I can go to my model view. But for some people, probably this model view looks pretty familiar, right? This looks like a Power BI model view. So what I did here is I created some relationships and things like this. But that would actually create the relationships in the data warehouse and the tables for relational databases. But I see other things here too, right? There's a new measure here on top. I can actually go in and create a measure. This is going to take a little bit longer than I want it to be too. But it's there. Again, everything is preview, so we are working clockwork on making everything better. Okay, so now I'm going to do a little measure. And it's going to create it. You see an error message showing up too. We're going to ignore that. And just like that, we are in a Power BI report. I didn't create any data sets. I didn't do anything. It's just here. I created a warehouse. I loaded in some data. I created some relationship, a measure. Boom. Now we have a report. And the measure is here. I just drag in the measure. And I drag in calendar year. And hopefully it will be very quick. Yeah, so here it is. Here's the data. So that's it. Again, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. I just created a warehouse with a few clicks. I loaded in some data. I added some relationships and created a measure. And that's it. Now we've shown everything from loading data into Fabric, from, in this case, a SQL Server database. It could be anything. Loaded data into Fabric with a warehouse, something that we know and understand. At least I know and understand because I'm a traditional ETL database guy. So store procedures, everything that I know and love. I didn't have to create a new data set on top. I didn't have to move data. That's again core thing. We're going to talk more about it, but I didn't have to move data. Automatically have a Power BI data set on top. Okay, so let's continue because now we're only getting started. But that's pretty exciting already. So now let's talk about the real secret, the real thing that is making this all work. And that's the lake-centric and open architecture. It's something we call OneLake. And OneLake is what we call the OneDrive for data, kind of. So it's a single SaaS lake for the whole organization. So you create a OneLake, or you create a Fabric tenant, you create a Power BI or something, you automatically get a OneLake for the whole organization. all workloads automatically store that data on this OneLake workspace. All the data is automatically stored into the hierarchical namespaces. The OneLake is automatically indexed. Again, this is key for MIP labeling, lineage, PII scans, governance, compliance. All the things that we know and love from Power BI are automatically applicable to the data that is sitting in OneLake. Now, and this is where the real cool stuff happens, because the OneCopy allows for this real separation of compute and storage. Okay? All the compute engines store their data in the same way in the OneLake. The data is stored in a single common format. We store everything in a delta format in the lake. You don't even have to know what it is, it just happens. But because it happens that way, you can use that for all the other workloads. So for example, I want to write some Spark, and I use that on the customer 360 model. I want to write some SQL on top of the finance model. I want to write some KQL from real-time analytics on top of my service telemetry. I want to do some Power BI on some business KPIs. All the data is stored as Delta format. You didn't have to do anything for it. All the stuff that I just did, you import some data, everything happens under the covers, it's getting stored in Delta format, and it can be used by any compute engine. Even more cool is it's an open source format Delta. The data in OneLake is accessible to everything else. I think I have a slide on that too. I think the most important thing, which we unfortunately do not have a lot of details on yet, Chris and I are waiting on this anxiously too, but one security is a security layer that we're going to build on top, just like what you know today from like row-level security in Power BI, but instead of doing it in the Power BI layer, you do it all the way in the bottom. You import data into the lake, you create a security layer, every workload on top will actually be able to leverage the same security model. It's not there yet today, it's coming soon, hopefully. So now the really cool thing is, you can take that OneCopy to the next level with shortcuts. Because under the covers, so you can create copies, and like, who here is a traditional analysis services person for a long time? Yeah, a few hands. One of the coolest things that we've always had in multidimensional models, and I'm pointing against Chris, but there's a lot of things we used to have in multidimensional models, is the ability to use dimensions from other models. Like for example, you have a product table and you want to reuse that product table in different models or data sets that you created. That was really never possible with Power BI or with data sets. With shortcuts, that's possible. Because I have data sitting in one place, and I'll show you this in a second to make it more understandable, but you have data sitting in one place and you want to reuse that somewhere else, you can just create a shortcut. Just like you can do in Office or in Excel or on the desktop. You can create a shortcut to a folder somewhere else on your desktop. You double click it, automatically shows up there. You didn't move anything, it's just there. And you can create shortcuts like that too. Now even more cool is when you already have data sitting in Azure, like maybe you already have some Databricks today and you're doing some spitting out some Parquet files and you do putting it on Azure ADLS, something like this, or you're doing it in Amazon or you're doing it on Google, you can use shortcuts to make them part of the OneLake. And as soon as you make them part of the OneLake, all the services in OneLake will be able to connect to it. And I'll show you an example of this in a second. Not really connecting to Google or Amazon, but how it could work. But the cool thing is, you can connect to the data directly from OneLake, and it becomes immediate part of the rest of what you already have of the OneLake. And when you give people access, they can immediately connect to it. So that's really cool. And also the other way around. Like if you want your Databricks to read some data that is created in Fabric, it's possible because Parquet is Parquet. Even if you want to, you can open it up and open it with a local file editor or whatever it is. Even our friend Mim online on Twitter, I don't know if anyone follows him, he's doing some things with DuckDB. He's opening Parquet files written from Fabric with DuckDB, and all of these things are possible because we're using an open structure, an open file format. There is a secret sauce, so we'll talk about that in a second though. All right, so let's take it all back and let's do a quick demo. So let's go ahead in here. I'm going to my data warehouse. Now I'm not going to go to data warehouse because now I'm going to go to a Lakehouse. Okay, this is something new, right? So before we had data warehouses, we didn't have Lakehouses really in Microsoft as a top construct. now we have something we call Lakehouse. And what is a Lakehouse? And we already heard some customers, what should I choose? A warehouse or a Lakehouse? Or what's the difference? Now really the difference is, who are you? What is your core strength? Are you a SQL developer? Is your background SQL Server? Do you know how to write store procedures? Create a warehouse. But do you love Python more? Do you love notebooks? Spark? You want to use a Lakehouse. Under the covers, both are writing the same files to the Lakehouse, to the OneLake. So it doesn't matter how you do it. Both, if you write a SQL Server insert statement in the warehouse, the files land up in the lake. If you write a notebook with Spark, files end up in the lake. Now you can do things, like for example, let me show you here. So here what I've kind of done is like mini medallion architecture that you hear a lot about. I created a raw workspace here. So I created a raw Lakehouse and I created a golden Lakehouse. And I've created some notebooks. This is actually the first time I'm using notebooks. When I created this demo a couple of weeks ago, first time creating notebooks, I actually kind of love them. First time doing it. So yeah, if you get a chance to play with them, I would say do it because it's actually really cool. Like for example, what I'm doing here is I'm just copying data, and we don't have to go into much details on what this notebook actually does. My colleague Phil C. Mark is actually doing something really cool with notebooks, and he's going to put out a white paper on best practices and how to move data between medallion architectures and stuff like this. So it's coming. I stole this from him. So what this thing actually does is moves data from a raw to a golden layer. And it does some things here in the bottom, like it goes over this data actually already exists, and then we're going to overwrite some data, otherwise we're going to append. I'm not going to go through it. The cool thing, and I'm kind of getting why notebooks are so cool, if I have a new project, I just do Control A, copy, paste in a new notebook, and I'm done. My whole ETL is there. That's really cool and really fast. I'm not going to go through it, but again, now I'm loading data, not through pipelines like ADF as we did before. Now I'm using Spark. I'm using notebooks in Spark to move the data around. Okay, so now I'm going to go to that golden Lakehouse that I was talking about before. So this is that Lakehouse that I have created, and let me click on the Lakehouse. And here now we have a Lakehouse that I created, and we see it's AdventureWorks. Okay, I admit it's AdventureWorks. Again, we know and love it. The one thing that I did here is I added something, and you might see it when you look really well. Here is a table that is not really a table. It's really small, but it has a little symbol, link symbol. This is a shortcut. So I actually shortcutted a table in from somewhere else, from a different Lakehouse, into this Lakehouse. I can just reuse tables from anywhere else, as long as I have access, obviously, into this Lakehouse. The data doesn't move. The data stays in the original location, but I can reuse it here without moving the data. Now, you can see here, there's all the data showing up. And here, if I go to the bottom, for example, fact and sales, I can actually go in here and go look at my view files. And now you can see under the covers, it actually exists in a ton of Parquet files, because I've been doing a lot of things with this. When uploading, deleting, I'm doing all kinds of stuff with these Parquet. So this is the actual data. It's sitting here as Parquet files under the covers. Okay? And I can write Spark, I can do all these things with it. It just works. But I can actually go do something again, because this is the power of OneCopy. I wrote notebooks, I wrote Spark, but I can also do something else. I can go in here and I can actually write SQL, because I also have a SQL endpoint for this. For those of you who remember serverless engine for Synapse, this is not it. I completely rewrote it, I just wanted to say it. But it's like that. Because now I can write SQL against data sitting in the node, in OneLake. I can see the same tables are here. I can write the same SQL query I wrote before, only now I didn't. The big difference here is you don't see store procedures and things like this, because now I'm in a Lakehouse. I'm writing notebooks, I'm doing Python, I'm doing Spark. But I can still write SQL. I can interact with SQL. I can do SQL things with it. And performance is about the same as a data warehouse. So for performance reasons, there's no difference. It's really a matter of what you like and how you do it. Especially people coming out of schools these days, it's all Python, it's all Spark, it's all things like this. So this is really the thing that's been happening a lot. Again, yeah. So that's really the power of that OneCopy, allowing you to use that same data from multiple different engines. Because now we've written with Spark engine, we've used Python, we've used SQL against the same file sitting in the lake. If I would like to, but I don't want to, you could use Databricks and look at and load the same files and do something with it too. Okay, so that's kind of what OneCopy is, but that's not it. The really cool things, I'm a bit biased, is when we start doing BI. Okay, this is the situation the world is today. We have direct query, or we have import mode. I don't have to go explain too much about each because we all know it. Direct query, SQL queries getting sent to the data source, or import mode. Now, the biggest problem is, of course, direct query. It's slow, but real time. I mean, you can make it fast, but it costs a lot of resources. It's got lots of problems. So yeah, it's a pain. Import mode, it works amazing, but it's latent. You have to load data, you have to manage stuff. There is problems with it because you have to load the data in, and you have to worry about just fit in memory. Now, wouldn't it be amazing if you can say use the same file sitting in the lake, not just for SQL, not just for Spark, but also for DAX. And that's what we fixed. And that's something we call Direct Lake. With Direct Lake, we can do BI directly on top of those files sitting in the lake. No import, no direct query, it just automatically works. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Because where we were today, just now, I'm in this Lakehouse, again, those files sitting in the lake. But now what I want to go do is I want to go and actually go back to that, here it is, my golden Lakehouse, and I want to create a new Power BI data set. Okay, I just click on new Power BI data set, and it's going to look at the schema that we have in there. Okay, let's see, all the tables, factory internet sales, I'm going to take it really simple and straightforward, and dim date, I'm going to click on continue, and now it's going to create me a new data set. It's not going to import anything, it's not going to do anything, it's just going to reference those files sitting in the lake. What we've done is we've made it as such that as soon as you send DAX measures or DAX queries or MDX, if you want to use an Excel against the datasets in Power BI, we load data from the Parquet in memory into the analysis engine on the fly without you having to manage anything. If things update, and I'll show you this in a second too, if things update, it automatically should update too in the dataset. And it's taking quite a long time, longer than I want. And these arrows might have something to do with it. All right, let's give it a sec. Otherwise, let's quickly go here. Now it's here, of course. Okay, so here are the two tables. And again, just like usual, I can create a relationship. It just looks the same as Power BI, but it's not really. I can go in here, create a relationship. And I can create confirm. Other way around. Fine. Sorry? No, yeah, dragging the wrong order. And now I can go in here and create some measures. Oh yeah.
Why couldn't it get the relationship from the data warehouse?
It's basically mirror whatever is in data.
It would do, but I saw you had to make the relationship manually.
Yeah, but in the Power BI, yes, but the data doesn't.
Yeah, I see. When you load from SQL Server, you inherit the relationships as well automatically, because it only makes sense that way. And then you don't have to go look for them as well, which is a mission.
All right. So I create relationships and I get these things in going. Now I just can go in here and create a new report. And now the report is just showing up. I didn't import anything. It just connected to those files in the lake, and that's it. Now, let me also show you what happens when I automatically, when new data comes in. So now I have data sitting here. Let me make it a bit bigger. Okay, so now I have data loaded in here from 2005 to 2017. So you can see automatically, yeah, I didn't do anything, nothing imported, it just works. I just connected the data in the Lakehouse. So now let me just go ahead and add some new data. So I'm going to go back in here. Let me just quickly go in here and here. Lakehouse. Let's open another notebook that I created. And here is something called load fact. And again, really simple and straightforward. These are a few things that I did. First, I loaded in data in Parquet, where I loaded in data just using Spark SQL smaller than 2018. Overwrite all the data that I have sitting in my Lakehouse as new files, but now I just want to add some data. So now I'm just going to say where between 2018 and 2020, I'm going to append some data to my fact internet sales. I'm just going to run it, and now it's going to add some data. Now, unfortunately, this is where we're going to encounter another bug. I already talked to the dev team. They're already rolling out a fix for it, but I know how to get around it. It worked last week when I did the same demo. So what's supposed to happen, I'm going to go back to the report, press refresh, and everything gets updated automatically. That, unfortunately, is currently not working. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to have any cluster attached to this. This is the power of Fabric. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to spin up clusters. You don't have to do anything. You just run it. It works. You don't have to choose on which cluster, how many clusters, what do you want to do. It just works. We'll talk about billing in a second. Of course, there's always going to be a billing question.
After all this is not reasonable because of the bill.
All ChatGPT is somewhat free. Okay.
Premium.
Everything looks like it's going bad.
Premium with premium on top. Premium with tears.
Okay, now we can see it's started to run. Now it's running and it's adding data to my Lakehouse. And now what I can go ahead and do is pretty easily and quickly go in, and let's make sure it ends quickly. Yeah, now it's almost done. Loading in data. So it's actually doing here, you can see under the covers all kinds of Spark jobs. Now it's done, it loaded in new data. So what I should be able to do is click refresh here and new data should show up. Unfortunately, there's a bug right now, so it doesn't work, but I can show you that it does work. Because I can click refresh, but you will see how fast the refresh is. Done. Okay? Because it didn't actually do anything. It didn't actually load in any data. What happened now is, and I have a different session on it, which is going to take another hour, so I won't do that. But there's something called framing that we have inside of the analysis engine, because as you might know, Delta format has versioning built into it. So Delta has version built into it. Like, how do you want to make sure that you can control as a BI developer which version of the data you want to point to? You always want to have the latest and greatest updates. It just automatically updates the latest and greatest. If you want to control it and say, well, I actually want to update my dimension tables and then my fact table, and after all of that is done, I want to say now, update the data, that's possible too. But I won't go into too much details here about this today. Now it should be refresh, and now hopefully everything shows up. So here it is. So that's it. You saw how quick the refresh was. Again, there's no data really loaded in refresh. What happens with refresh is we reframe to the latest Parquet file format version that is sitting in the file format. That's it. And it deletes everything that's currently in memory, because we do load data in memory, because it's analysis services. But it's not all loaded in memory, which is a huge difference than it was before. Now we only load in memory what we need, not the whole model. Again, this is a massive difference, massive change. That also means you will need less memory to have more data. Okay? We'll talk a little bit about licensing later because it's important. Okay, yeah, so that's it. So now I updated my report. But the cool thing here, and this is again, this OneCopy, OneLake, it's all pointing to the same Parquet file sitting in the lake. You don't actually have to do anything with the Parquet files, even though you could. Like if you were to actually want to open up Azure Explorer and want to poke around with the files and Parquet, you can, go ahead, because it's an open format, but you don't have to know anything about it. You write Spark, you do PySpark, you update things. Automatically, that SQL engine that is sitting on top will get you the new results. Power BI sitting on top will automatically give you the new results. So that's really cool. All right, so let's continue. So now let's go back to the next question. Everyone's talking about co-pilots and things like this. Of course, we are having some co-pilot experiences. We are really early with it. It's not that easy to build a co-pilot experience on top of Power BI and on top of Fabric, but there are things coming, so I have some videos that I can show you. Yeah, this was the demo I was originally going to do, but Matthias already stole my thunder, so I'm not going to show you again. So instead, let's just quickly look at, oh yeah, let's do that first. So these are the slides I unhid and created a new demo for. A new product that is currently today in private preview is something we call Data Activator. It's a really cool product which allows you to do alerting on real-time events. So again, you have data coming in through Power BI, through Synapse, through real-time analytics, and now I want to do something with it. I want to process the data as it comes in. Now this could be real-time stream analytics when you have a factory floor, when you have parcels coming in. That's the demo I have, parcels coming in. But that will be even cooler, and I didn't get time to show you that today. It will be cooler for me as a Power BI guy. You can also connect to Power BI. You can connect to a data set in Power BI and say, hey, when my measure is bigger than this value for the last 5 minutes, I want something to happen. I want an alert to get shown in my Teams site. I want to get an email. So you can do real-time processing in it. So you can do Teams, Outlook, Power Automate, whatever you want. That's all built into this product. So let's quickly take a look at the demo. And again, now this is even more because I'm not that familiar even with the product. But here, again, so you can do get data here. So you can choose event hubs. So you can connect to an event hub, you can connect to Power BI or a simulator, and this is what I'm using now. So Power BI, you can connect to Power BI, and that's, yeah, so you can create a measure and say, okay, when this happens over the last 5 minutes, take an action. In my case, I'm having here events that are coming in, packages that are delivered, in transit, shipped, and it's just coming in as we go along. But I want an action to happen when it takes too long for a parcel to be on its way. So I can go in here and say, okay, well, when our in transit, okay, I'm gonna add a property, so because I'm gonna start designing it.
Check your email.
Refresh real quick.
It's in private.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Okay.
I'd like to hear your feedback, sure. Maybe not ask you now. So again, here, hours in transit, coming in here, add a property, and I'm gonna go design it. So now I can go in here, and I can actually go in here and say, okay, when hours in transit, here you can see all the values. My hours in transit of a few parcels that are happening. What I actually want to go do is I want to summarize it. I want to see the average over time. Okay, I want to see it over the last 5 minutes. Okay, so this is the average hours in transit per parcel over the last 5 minutes. And what I want to do is I want to detect when hours in transit in the last 5 minutes came over 15. And automatically real time kind of shows me under here like which parcels are coming in that where the transit time in the last 5 minutes became greater than 15. If that is the case, or maybe I want to say 20, and you will see that it will shrink down. So now there's only one parcel that took longer than 20 minutes in the last 5 minutes. If that is the case, you can see, is there anyone familiar here with like home assistant, home automation, things like this? James, of course. Yeah. No one else? Okay. So this is kind of similar. So you can do events. You can take actions upon it when something happens. So in my case now, I want to act upon it, and I want to send a Teams message. And now I can do really funny things. I can do here say, okay, when this happens, I'm gonna send messages to Chris Webb. I did test it. It actually does work. Our internal Microsoft Teams site. So Chris is gonna get a lot of messages now. So you can run this, and then it actually gets messages saying, oh, okay. So for this object, it took longer than 50 minutes to be in process. Now, really cool thing is you can actually go ahead and create these things for your Power BI reports too. So that's really cool. That's something that is coming. I wasn't even 100% sure. Chris said, yeah, we can demo it. So, okay, let's do it. So we'll see if they actually will like me demoing this. But yeah, so this is a really cool product that's coming too. But as you can see, everything is, again, SaaSified. It's working together. It's really easy to do data activator on data that's coming in on my data warehouse that I just created, or my Power BI report that I just have. Everything works together, single experience. And that's really the key here. Now, of course, AI powered. Let's quickly go and look at that too. Unfortunately, no real demo. I wish I could, but it's only.
AI in Microsoft Fabric empowers you to unlock the full potential of your data.
They're pretty
With
cool.
Copilot integrated into every data experience, Microsoft Fabric lets you use natural language to bring your data to life.